when does your body adapt to training? It only adapts to training during periods of rest and recovery. So, on a micro scale, this could be the importance of getting an adequate night of sleep every night so that your body is resting, recovering, and rebuilding. But it can also be on a bigger scale of like, hey, are we taking a rest day off of training every 1 to 2 weeks? That depends on your sport and your competitive level. Some people need to take a rest day once every week. Some higher level athletes, it might be something more like once every 2 weeks. But you need time for your body to focus on rest, rejuvenation, and recovery. Did you know the average woman spends 7 years of her life dealing with period pain? WaveBy believes it's time to get those years back. Founded by an OBGYN, WaveBy is the first science-backed solution that regulates menstrual cycle and reduces period pain before it even starts. WaveBy has 3 products. By Irregularity from WaveBy is designed to help your cycle find its rhythm again. Packed with clinically studied nutrients like inositol, magnesium, and chasteberry, By Irregularity supports healthy ovulation, hormone balance, and smoother, more predictable cycles without prescription or hormones. By Cramps and By Bad Cramps are the proactive premenstrual products that target the prostaglandin messengers that cause cramps and heavy bleeding, so your life doesn't have to stop every month. Think of it as the new Midol, backed by science, built by women, and designed to keep you feeling like yourself. Join the thousands who have already said it's absolutely life-changing, including myself. I've been taking this product every day for nearly 6 months. I take By Irregularity and By Cramps, and it has absolutely reduced my cramping and regulated my cycle. It is super predictable. So head to wavebuy.co and use the code Lindsey Cortes for 10% off. Say bye to irregular or painful cycles and hi to your true rhythm. Because when your cycle's in sync, everything else just flows. Lindsey Cortes for 10% off your WaveBuy purchase. Hello, fans. Lindsey Elizabeth Cortes, sports dietitian and your host of the podcast. Today's episode is called Taking a Break, and there's actually a double meaning here. So if you're new to the show, welcome. And if you're returning, thanks for being a listener. What is this double meaning of taking a break? Well, I want to talk about the nutrition that might need adjustments if we are taking a break from our sport. So this happens this time of year. Maybe we're just taking a week off because of Christmas. Maybe it's 2 weeks off. Or maybe there's a reason that we're taking a little bit more time off, perhaps just in between seasons from fall to spring seasons. I mean, really the only sports that don't take a break during this time are like college basketball, always seem to play right through Christmas. And then some of our national sports teams like NFL and NBA and NHL as well. But most people are taking some downtime, even if it's not completely off. So, what I want to talk about today is nutrition while we're taking a little bit of a break. This is not necessarily while we are injured and doing prolonged recovery time. This is more kind of short term, just taking a quick break, taking some downtime. So, we'll talk about that. The second meaning of taking a break is actually that I'm going to put this podcast on a short break. And I'll keep this part of the episode short, just a few minutes of explanation here. While I release this episode, it should be right before Christmas. And you know what? I've learned over the years that listening to the podcast, I don't get as many downloads and listens. Like our Thanksgiving episode didn't, the one that released on Thanksgiving didn't get as many listens as it deserves. Christmas never gets as many listens as it deserves because people's schedules are off, they're busy. So I think that the week of Christmas and the week of New Year, I actually will not release an episode. And though I would like to start 2026 strong and release an episode, I'm actually moving across the country. This has been in the works for a few months now, and I'm so excited that my family is moving from San Antonio, Texas, up to Boston, Massachusetts. And we're so excited for this for a variety of reasons. One, Massachusetts is where I'm from. So I've been away from home for, I think, 15 years now. And I get to go home. I'm going to be around not only most of my immediate family, like my sister and my nephews, my brother, but also my extended family. So many cousins and aunts and uncles live there. The next reason this is so important to us is because after my son Levi was born, who's my youngest, he has a medical condition and we've had decent medical care, but there's actually a clinic that specializes in his disease that people from around the world go to Boston to get treatment there. And so this will be the best care for him. And also, if, although a cure isn't really on the horizon, there are better treatments, enzyme therapies, gene editing that are happening at that facility. So this not only will he receive better care like in the immediate, but I think it's also for his future and really how this disease impacts his life. So this has been years in the making of my husband who's active duty, who normally you don't get to choose where you get to go and you have no say in it and you just get told you're going here, you're going there, but because my son's condition, we haven't been able to move. We've kind of been stuck. And so he did a lot of networking and we did a lot of praying. To be frank, we feel really that out of all the places that the Air Force said we can go, it's where the best medical care is and where family is. So it's amazing. We're so excited. And to those of you who have reached out to me throughout the year since Levi was born and shown me support, love, and sent prayers up on my behalf, on Levi's behalf, I'm so grateful because this is a life changing move for us. So, how does that relate to the podcast? I just had to be honest with myself. I've got too much going on. I've got too much going on. I love this podcast. I love interviewing people, but I thought, you know what? The month of January, I need to take that pressure off of myself to keep a weekly episode going. I tried in December to store up some episodes and I was just like, it's just too much. So what I'm going to do is just take Christmas and the New Year week off because the holidays, and I'm actually not going to release an episode for the month of January. I will come back the first week of February. So do me a favor right now, hit subscribe, whatever listening app or channel you're on, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or otherwise. I think we're on Podbean, iHeartRadio. Hit subscribe to this show, to Female Athlete Nutrition, because I don't want you to get out of the habit. I don't want you to kind of just like, if we're not on your radar, forget to tune in. So hit subscribe so that when a new episode is released in February, you're going to get notified and you're like, yes, Lindsey's back. Female Athlete Nutrition is back. And you'll get right back into the habit of listening once again. So that's the reason for taking this short break. So it should be about a 6-week break to give me the space to focus on moving our entire lives across the country and reestablishing life, right? I have to reestablish childcare and work hours and move into a new home, which we don't even have yet because we're active duty military. So we're going to live on base and we don't even have a home yet. So hopefully we have a home by the time we get there because that'll be fun living with my parents for a while. And yes, tune in, hit subscribe so that you'll be notified. All right, so that's my personal break. And many of you listening as athletes might also be taking a break during this time, a break from your sport. So as I kind of already mentioned, this is pretty common over the holidays. And it's also, some winter sports, you're still training, but there's a lot of people that do fall and then spring sports that we're just we take December rather easy and maybe January, we're slowly building back up again. So the type of break I'm talking about here is a 1, 2, maybe up to 4-week break. Maybe break isn't even the right term. It's just like it's a downtime. It's deload time. So why is taking a break important? It lines up with the holidays so that you can travel, be with family, celebrate. Great. But it's also necessary for your body to take a break so that we don't have something called overtraining syndrome. I speak about REDS, relative energy deficiency in sport, a lot on this podcast. And that is when your body doesn't have enough energy to support what you're doing with your training. And you can see a lot of physiological consequences that eventually break you down so you can see like changes in your heart rate, in your gut health, in your blood biomarkers, and you will see eventual declines in performance. Actually, a lot of those consequences of REDS overlap with overtraining syndrome. And it can be quite complicated. I've had a few athletes come to me over the years looking for REDS recovery. And in that, there's kind of also like, I'm actually, even as a practitioner, not 100% sure if this is REDS or overtraining. And they can kind of be happening at the same time because for many people, it's like, well, why are you in an energy deficit of REDS? It might be because you're overtraining. But some people actually are eating technically enough and they're still just overtraining their body, which means it hasn't had enough rest time. The truth is, when does your body adapt to training? It only adapts to training during periods of rest and recovery. So, on a micro scale, this could be the importance of getting an adequate night of sleep every night so that your body is resting, recovering, and rebuilding. But it can also be on a bigger scale of like, hey, are we taking a rest day off of training every 1 to 2 weeks? And that depends on your sport and your competitive level. Some people need to take a rest day once every week. Some higher level athletes, it might be something more like once every 2 weeks. But you need time for your body to focus on rest, rejuvenation, and recovery. And then we can go on an even bigger scale, which is you might be sleeping every night and taking a full rest day once every 1 to 2 weeks. But also, we have these training cycles that might be 2 or 4 months long. And it's like after completing this cycle, our body needs to rest. I'm not. As much I have a degree in sports nutrition, which combines nutrition and an exercise physiology, but I won't go so far to say that I am the exercise physiologist. I'm not. I'm definitely not. So they're going to speak to this more eloquently than I am. So I'm not going to overstep my bounds. I'm just going to tell you the basics of what I know. And something you can research is like general adaptation and how does your body adapt to training. If you're pushing the gas pedal all the time, go 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 go, you're going to run out of gas. That's simple. You need to stop and you need to refill and you need to do some repairs on that car as well because you're burning up the rubber on those tires. I'm also not the car expert, by the way. So funny that I'm using a car analogy, but I'm definitely not the car expert. But it's that simple. You need to rest and recover. And if you're not, you can run into overtraining syndrome. And that might overlap with REDS because if you're not recovering with adequate fuel as well. So again, that's as far as I'm going to go in the exercise physiology explanation as to why this is so important. But you need rest every day. You need rest in like a weekly cycle, and you need rest on a macro cycle of like following a training plan or a full season. The truth is, many athletes they reach their peak for like competition season, that big, championship meet or race or game, and like immediately after, they're at their weakest and their lowest, and they're the most burnt out. And that is why it's so important to take rest after you train all season, you build up, you build up, you build up, you do your peak performance, and then it's kind of a very quick and rapid, like the body's done. It can't sustain peak performance anymore. So again, many fall sport athletes, kind of around Thanksgiving time or early December, they had those championships, they had those final events. And that's why the month of December, we're taking this break. And then we're going to ease back into things as we gear up for spring season. All right. What does this mean for your nutrition? So, the fears that I once had in my youth and that athletes expressed me is we're so afraid that during this off time and downtime that we're going to gain weight or our body composition will change, like we'll lose muscle. And there's a lot of fear around gaining fat and losing muscle, and we're afraid that that will limit our performance. The first myth I want to debunk here is that your metabolism does not change that quickly. I'm talking about a 1 to 4 week break. Your metabolism doesn't change that quickly to where you will see body composition changes. True body composition changes of gaining or losing fat and gaining or losing muscle take months, typically 3 months. So, and I'm saying typically, it's like kind of like a minimum or longer. And that's still based on how much rest are you really doing, or, how extreme of rest and or diet are you doing that would change your body composition. So first and foremost, a 1 to 4 week break from your sport is not going to have true impact on your body composition. Now, if by chance your pants are feeling tighter or you do step on the scale and you notice a couple more pounds, this does not mean body composition changes. It is possible that you fully restocked your muscle glycogen and have a little more hydration on you. So, this absolutely happens in a downtime. See, when you're training every day, you're burning through your muscle glycogen. And ideally, if you are refueling, then you're refueling your muscle glycogen. But, it's this constant cycle for athletes of like, burning it off and then refueling, burning it off, refueling. And so your muscle glycogen that can kind of, if you're taking a 1 or 2 week break and you're not burning it all off, that's fine. And then when you're eating, you're restocking it fully. It's almost like carb loading a little bit, how the goal of carb loading before a marathon or an ultra endurance event or something like that is to saturate your muscle glycogen. So you have so much energy so that you're ready to go come endurance event race day. Well, when you're taking a break, you might actually potentially be saturating your muscle glycogen. And that might result on a couple extra pounds on the scale or a little like, I'll use the word bloated, kind of puffiness, which is most likely because glycogen also holds a lot of water. So you're actually more hydrated during this time if we think about it that way. So that's not a body composition change. What this actually means is that in 2 weeks, when you get back to practice, you're going to be so energized. You're going to be ready to go. You're going to be like, man, I took a 2 week break. I've got so much energy. I am ready to go. And you really will be because your muscle glycogen will be saturated. And that's great because you're going to feel good on the court, on the track, wherever you are, you're going to feel good and you're going to start your spring season training strong. Let's just hypothesize you don't take that approach and you get nervous about taking a break and you're like, I don't need to eat as much. I don't need as many carbs. Well, then what happens is you don't stock up your glycogen. And, maybe that's not terrible because you're not training right now. You're taking a break. But in a few weeks, when you get back to practice, you're not going to be as energized and ready to go. You might even feel like, man, getting back into this feels so hard because you see, you actually didn't let your body fully recover. You actually didn't store up energy so that you'd hit the ground running. Now you're getting back to practice and you've only got 50% tank. It's like, okay, you technically gave like your joints and muscles a rest, but nutritionally you didn't adequately fuel. And so you're probably going to feel like, man, it's hard to get back into this. And to be fully transparent, there's a level of, after you take a break, it's the first couple of days of practice might always feel a little hard to get back into, but within a week you're going to be fine because you really haven't lost fitness either. So I'm going to go back to what I said before that in order for you to adapt to your strain training, to get faster, to get stronger, you do need these rest times. That is the best thing because the alternative of continuing to push through and push on the gas pedal is overtraining. So it's you haven't truly lost fitness. You've done yourself a service in the long run by taking a short break. But that first week back might feel like, oh, this is a little tiring. But I tell you, if you're limiting your nutrition, it's going to be even harder. But if you're saying, hey, I'm going to stock up on my muscle glycogen during this off time, it's going to feel a lot easier getting back into it because you're going to have energy. You're going to be ready to go. You're going to be psyched to get back into training because you've fully recovered over your break. So that's the thing. Like, again, probably not real fat gain, but most likely potentially a little bit of muscle glycogen or water storage. Also, when it comes to muscle loss, that's not happening in a 2 to 4 week time frame either. Muscle, again, if after months of taking a break, you might lose muscle. Absolutely, that can happen. Or it's really if you're being immobile. That's like, when you're injured and you're wearing a cast and you're really not activating that muscle, you're immobile. That's when we see muscle loss. But again, it still doesn't happen in a week. It takes more time than that. So you really have to be immobile. And I want to challenge you with thinking about this too. As athletes, we have such high expectations on ourselves. We know what we're capable of, what our normal weekly training is, how many miles we do, how many hours we put in. Like, this is what I usually do. And so when you're taking a break, if we're being honest, you're actually still doing something. It's just that in your head, it doesn't feel like it. But to like the average Westerner, it's like, no, you're still doing something. I always see this, especially in the running community, like a distance runner who's used to doing, I don't know, like 50 miles a week. And then they're like, well, we're taking a 2-week downtime. So I'm only doing 25 miles. It's like, okay, the average person does not run 25 miles a week, right? You're still doing something. You are still doing something. And if you're in like a ball sport, team sport, something a little different, like maybe it's like, okay, or gymnastics, like any skating, like, okay, I'm not doing ice time this week, but I still did yoga twice. I went for a couple walks or incline walks and I did some lightweight lifting. It's like, you're still doing something. You are not immobile. You are not sedentary. So I want to challenge you with this as well. When we build up this fear in our head, oh my gosh, I'm not training as much. Like I don't want to lose muscle. I don't want to lose fitness. I don't want to gain fat. But the reality is you're still doing something. You're not sedentary. You're not immobile. And this is most likely. I mean, maybe like on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, you are more sedentary. And you know what? Good. But probably over these 2 to 4 weeks that you're taking a break, you're still doing something. And that's so important because again, you're not going to lose muscle. You're still engaging it. You're still contracting it. You're still moving it. So that's what you're not going to lose muscle in this short break. Fans, I'm pausing the conversation again to check in on you. Are you concerned that you have REDS? That's relative energy deficiency in sport. It's a syndrome of not ideal health consequences and performance consequences that all stem from the idea that you're not fueling optimally or fueling enough for your sport needs. I've become an expert in this over the years because unfortunately, a lot of female athletes struggle with this. We have research that shows sometimes up to 90% of female athletes might be suffering from at least one of the side effects of REDS. Other research says that up to 45% of female athletes are struggling with disordered eating. These are big statistical numbers, and I don't like it. I'm here to help you become fierce, fit, and fueled. So first and foremost, head to lindseycortes.com/REDS to learn more about REDS, listen to past podcast episodes, and take our free REDS quiz to see if this might be a concern for you. From there, I've got 3 ways to help you. 1, download the REDS Recovery Guide and start taking action right away. 2, join our REDS Recovery membership. For a very affordable $15 a month, you will have access to me as a sports dietitian to educate and empower you to fuel better. We meet once a week for live calls, Q&A. You have access to the recordings if you can't join live, and a community group chat to support, encourage, and motivate you along the way to fuel fiercely. Last, spots are limited for one-on-one help, but I can help you personally through one-on-one coaching, be it my Fast Track program, the Female Athlete System of Transformation, or perhaps Fuel School, depending on your age. All of that is on my website, lindseycortes.com. But because one-on-one spots are limited, I really want to encourage you to join the REDS Recovery membership. We live in a world where it's very easy to just pop online, read an article, listen to a podcast, and I think we do a decent job at getting information out there, but we all need someone to talk to and really ask those personal questions, and also be open and honest in a community that's going to support you in your fueling needs and goals. And that's exactly what this membership is. So only $15 a month. We meet once a week, and you will be provided with so much education and empowerment and support. I know you won't regret joining. Head to lindseycortes.com/REDS, and there you will see the REDS Recovery membership that you can join, and join us this week. It's time for you to be fierce, fit, and fueled. And with this, we also have to remember that as an athlete, as somebody who most athletes have more muscle mass on them compared to somebody who's not an athlete, you have to remember that muscle is metabolically active. What I mean by that is your metabolism, so to speak. Muscle actually actively burns calories even when you're not using it. The presence of muscle on your body means that you're basal metabolic rate is actually technically higher than if you had less muscle on your body. And so again, I want you to think about this because this is why your metabolism doesn't just change overnight. If you're not losing muscle overnight, then your metabolism isn't changing muscle overnight. Because let's say today you're in season and you did your 2-hour workout and you activated your muscle. Now tomorrow is an off day and you're starting your 2 weeks off or whatever, but you didn't lose muscle overnight. So that muscle the next day is actually still demanding the same amount of calories to support itself, even though you're not as physically active that day. But your muscle, just its presence on your body, is still saying, feed me. I need calories today to sustain myself. We do see that people who are under fueling or severely restricting their caloric intake lose muscle even if they're working out, even if they are being active, because if you don't have enough calories, then that muscle can't sustain itself. So that would be the only way that I would say you could lose muscle over this break is if you're not eating enough. It is still so important to eat enough calories, protein, carbohydrates, fats, all the nutrients, but you still need to eat enough because if you are in an extreme caloric deficit, that's what you actually could lose muscle over this break. So, you still need to eat throughout this break. So you need to eat enough so that you don't eat up your muscle. And so that when you do return to practice or training, you're energized, your muscle glycogen's full, and you're ready to go. You're like, I took a break, I did rest, I did recharge, I did refuel, and I'm ready to go. That was a lot of R's right there. Rest, recharge, refuel, ready to go. That's how you want to feel when you come back. All right. So another angle I can take to explain this is how I'm saying like your metabolism doesn't change overnight. When we talk about your metabolism, we have your total energy needs in a day. Like 60 to 70% of that is what we call your basal metabolic rate, which is the amount of calories you need just to sustain your body as is, right? And that's why I'm saying muscle impacts that to just keep breathing, keep your heart pumping, keep everything sustained. That would be regardless of exercise. This is just if you were laying in a bed all day doing nothing. 60 to 70% of your caloric needs is your BMR. That's what doesn't change in a 2 to 4 week span. That's not changing. That takes months to increase or decrease. Then we have like maybe 10% ish is typically attributed to what we call the thermic effect of food, which is the reality that eating food itself takes energy in order to digest and metabolize it. So that leaves us with 20 to 30% left that is attributed to our exercise and movement, I should say, because it's not all purely exercise. 20 to 30% of your total calories required in a day are for physical activity. And that 20 to 30%, I already highlighted the fact that, hey, if you typically, train 2 hours a day, 6 days a week, or you typically run 50 miles a week and now you're only running 25, or instead of training 2 hours a day, 6 days a week, now you're just training 1 hour a day, 4 days for the next couple weeks. That 20 to 30% is like, oh, maybe I reduced it by like 10%. 10% reduction there because you have to keep in mind there's other ways that I'm being physically active outside of training as well. Am I still standing up in the shower? Do I still walk up and down the stairs at my house multiple times a day? Am I still out walking the dog? Do I still stand? Like you have other forms of physical movement and activity. In fact, this can happen to some athletes that we don't realize. Maybe over a break you engage in different forms of physical activity. Like maybe in the winter months, you're like, I'm going to go skiing. And maybe you would never go skiing in season if you're not a skier, that is, unless your sport is skiing. But let's say your sport is basketball, but in the 2 week break that you're taking, you're like, I'm going to go hit the slopes with my friends because I never get to do this. And lo and behold, you actually are being physically active still. It's just not in your head, it's not training, right? So, this is why when we talk about how many calories do you need in a day, the reality is when you're taking a break, like it's not just like we wiped out 20 to 30%. no, you probably only wiped out like 10%. If potentially, if even, because sometimes we're doing more of other activities that we haven't really realized, like the skiing example. So, and this is all hypothetical. You can't. You'd have to sit down with me one on one. We'd have to go over your training. I'd have to hook you up to a machine to know your BMR, to know exactly how many calories you need on taking a break. But like, I just want to paint this picture for you that it's not like, and bear with me on the numbers, these are hypothetical numbers, but it's not like, oh, I normally burn 3,500 calories a day, but for 2 weeks, I'm taking a break. So now I should only eat 2,000 calories. No, no, that's way too drastic of a reduction. Like, that shouldn't be happening at all. So, if your body truly does need a little bit less on this break, it's going to be like maybe 10%. So, if you normally need 3,500 calories, like maybe you don't need 350. Which, what is that? That's a snack. Okay. I need one less snack a day. And I don't want you to think that. I don't want you to say, oh, Lindsay told me since I'm not training, I need one less snack. So I'm going to skip this snack. Like that. I'm not necessarily saying that. But what I'm saying is like, it's a minuscule amount compared to your whole day. What I think makes complete sense, because I don't want you to intentionally think you should reduce. I don't think you should. I don't think going into a break, you should at all be thinking you need to reduce. For all the reasons I just said, as you go into break, what you need to be thinking is, I want to refuel, rest, recover, recharge. And I want to feed my muscle so that I don't lose any. That's what you need to be thinking. And the reality is that if you are not heading into a training session, then you most likely don't have a pre workout or a during workout fuel or a post workout fuel. If this is truly a rest day, then there's 3 fueling time periods that you're just kind of not having. And that's your natural 10% reduction right there. And in all reality, if you're a competitive athlete, the truth is your pre workout and post workout fuel probably adds up to more than 350 calories. And which is why it's okay if you're like, man, I usually, eat breakfast and then I have a pre-workout and then I work out and then I have post-workout, then I have lunch. And you're thinking, well, I'm not doing that anymore. So now I just have breakfast and lunch. That could work. Or you might say, man, I'm still a little hungry and I kind of want to have a morning snack. The reason you're hungry is because your muscle and your metabolism hasn't changed. So it makes sense that you want a little morning snack. Go ahead and have it. Because as I mentioned, like a little morning snack, like I'm going to have an apple and peanut butter, is probably less total calories than your pre workout and your post workout combined. Right. And I'm just talking general numbers here, just being honest with you guys. Like, if you're a competitive athlete, what should you be having post workout? 20 to 30 grams of protein. And you should be having a minimum of a 2-to-1 ratio of carbs protein, ideally a 3-to-1. If you're an endurance athlete, maybe a 4-to-1. So what does that mean? You need 40, 60, or 80 grams of carbohydrate and 20 grams of protein. Or maybe you need 30, 60, or 90 grams of carbohydrate to 30 grams of protein. That's 400 or 500 calories right there in your post workout. So if you're swapping your pre workout, 60 grams of carbs, 240 calories. If you're swapping your pre workout and your post workout, these 500 plus calories, but instead you're like, I'm going to have carrots and ranch dip or rice cakes and peanut butter. I'm going to have a little snack. I'm feeling a little snacky. I'm still a little hungry. Like, man, I'm not working out, but I'm still a little hungry. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Have a snack because you still need to fuel your muscles and your metabolism. But if you're not doing that pre and post workout, makes sense because you're still eating less. Again, hear me loud and clear. I'm not encouraging you to eat less. I'm just facing the facts. If you're not doing pre and post, you naturally are eating less. And that's why you don't need to think about eating less because you naturally are eating less. And you actually do need to give yourself permission to have the snack and to still eat the carbs at your main meals. Right? Because that's the other first thing that's in people's minds. Like, I'm not working out, so I don't need carbs. You still do. Still got to feed your muscles, still got to refuel your glycogen so you're ready to go when you come back. And still, I would actually strongly encourage you when you're on a break, keep your main meals very similar to usual. I teach, if you've heard me preach this before, to have carbohydrate, protein, and color, meaning fruits and veggies, on your plate equally distributed, like a third of your plate for each, and then 1, 2, or 3 sources of fat on your plate as well. That should maintain. I think your main meal should really stay quite similar over a break. And it's just that swapping of pre and post workout that we're either eliminating or swapping for a snack. You might also find, well, I'm still going to do pre and post workout because I still am exercising today. I'm just exercising, less than usual. So I'm going to go with the running example I said before. Maybe you typically run 6 to 10 miles, or like you do a workout and, with intervals or speed. And instead now you're just, with air quotes around it, just jogging an easy 3 miles as recovery. So you might say, well, I'm still going to have pre and post workout, but it doesn't need to be this, 500 calorie, like, you know, 50 gram of carb, 20 gram of protein type of recovery thing. You might find like, you know what, I can just have 8 ounces of chocolate milk, shower, and then I'll eat my lunch right after. So you're still recovering. You're still having a post workout, but in all fairness, it might be a little bit of a lighter recovery fueling option than your standard when you're in full swing, in full training, in full season. Okay, so the big message here that I'm trying to spread is to eliminate the fear that your body composition is going to drastically change, that it just doesn't happen that quickly. And remember the importance of continuing to fuel enough to feed your muscles, to feed your metabolism, and to fully refuel your muscle glycogen so you're ready to go when you come back. I understand if you're truly taking a break, I do get that it's like, I don't need as much as when I'm at my peak performance. You're right. Your needs might decrease 10%, maybe 15, maybe 20% if you're really taking a good break and really putting your feet up and relaxing. Good for you for doing that. Valid. Most likely, this can happen naturally by slight adjustments or elimination of the pre, during, and post workout fuel. So, I don't want to see massive changes in your main meals. The longer that a break goes on for, you might notice a difference in your appetite. So, typically, like a break for 1 or 2 weeks, most athletes are still just as hungry, which is sometimes confusing because it's like, how am I so hungry when I'm not even working out? That's your proof that your metabolism hasn't changed yet. That's why you're still hungry. This is why being an intuitive eater can work with being an athlete. Listen to your body. If your body's saying it's hungry, it still is. Go ahead and eat. If you are taking more of what I'm calling an extended break, you might notice by like week 3 or week 4 that you're like, I'm just not as hungry. Well, that's because your muscle glycogen's fully refueled. Great. You did good the first couple weeks. And yeah, you're noticing that. And I'm gonna give you permission to be intuitive and to honor that. I'm just not as hungry. Like normally I put a lot of carbs on my plate, but like I'm just craving a salad. Okay. Okay, go for it. I don't want you to neglect the carbs. So make sure you got carbs at the other 2 meals. Or make sure on your salad, we put some chickpeas in there and a couple croutons. Like maybe you normally have a sandwich or pasta for lunch and you're not doing that, but you're still eating carbs. You still have the food group on there, even if it's not in the same quantity. I'm going to give you permission that if you're noticing as you're extending your break 3 or 4 weeks, you're truly not as hungry, that's fair. Just, I guess, my little piece of advice is just don't, well, for lack of better term, don't be stupid about it, where you're just like fooling yourself. I'm listening, I'm not hungry, so I'm just going to skip a meal. No, that's being foolish. Let's not do that. Let's hold ourselves accountable that you are an athlete. You need to make sure this rest is worth it. So we're not skipping meals, we're not eliminating entire food groups. But if you want to honor that you're really not as hungry, you're getting full, maybe your portion is a little smaller, or maybe you switch up the style of eating and you can be intuitive and honor that without being foolish and completely eliminating whole food groups or skipping meals completely. So again, I really want to encourage you to keep the main meals as similar as possible. And it's more those snacks and pre, during, post that you might manipulate just slightly, but it should feel intuitive. It should not be forced, especially if this is only a 1 to 2 week break. I also hope that in having this episode, this gives you permission as well throughout the holidays to kind of like, oh, if there are a few more cookies or heavier foods or a few more treats, whatever it might be, to know this is part of what taking a break is. We're not saying overindulge and stuff yourself so that you feel so uncomfortable. And, I'm not encouraging that. I'm just giving you permission that an extra slice of pie for a few days, on Christmas Day or Christmas Eve and a few days while the leftovers are still there, you're just refueling and recharging your body. This is needed. This is part of the downtime. This is part of what taking a break is all about. And I think it's really important to embrace that for a couple days and a couple of weeks so that I'm going to try and remember my 4 R's here: resting, refueling, recharging, and ready to go after the break. In the same sense, listeners, I hope that I am recharged and ready to go. I think I will be. I think this is why I came to my conclusion of taking the break from the podcast is I didn't want to stress myself out during an already stressful time in my life. So I think by saying, you know what, put the podcast on pause, I will be recharged and ready to go come February when we're back for a fresh new episode. February is also National Eating Disorder Awareness Week is at the end of February, almost March, and I've got a guest lined up for that. I've got a guest lined up to talk about supplement testing some more. So I've got some great ideas for you. You're going to want to tune back in February. We're all going to be recharged, ready to go. We're going to be ready to learn more information. So please, please, please hit subscribe, like I mentioned, and I'll be so excited to get back to you in February. One last thing, so sorry. If I'm still running my Reds recovery membership throughout the month of January. So hopefully you heard the ad for that in the middle of this episode. I put it in the middle of every episode. If you're interested in joining the Reds recovery membership, go ahead and join. You can join at any time. And the moment you join, you will be added to our very next live group call. We do a live group call every Tuesday. We skip 1 week of the month. So around the holidays, I'm skipping the week of Christmas, but typically we skip the first week of the month. But other than that, depending on how many weeks of the month there are, you're getting 3 or 4 live calls every month. You can join anytime. I will be hosting them in January, despite the move and all of that. So if you're interested in joining the Reds Recovery membership, you can still do that even in January. I'd love to see you on the next call. All right. Well, for my Reds recovery people, I'll see you soon. For everybody else, I'll see you in February. So until then, Happy New Year. Thanks so much for listening, and I really hope you enjoyed that episode. Please help spread the message of empowering female athletes to be fierce, fit, and fueled by giving this podcast a 5-star review and leaving a comment. You can also help more female athletes by sending this episode to a friend. Head to lindseycortes.com for more resources, information, more episodes, ways to work together, downloadable guides, and ebooks. And if you're interested in becoming a guest on the show or have a guest suggestion, head to lindseycortes.com/podcast, and there's a form for you to fill out to get on the show. Hey, there's more resources on my YouTube channel, Female Athlete Nutrition, Instagram at female.athlete.nutrition, and private Facebook group, Female Athlete Nutrition. I think you get the point. I'm here to support female athletes by fueling better and becoming fierce, fit, and fueled. Most importantly, if you need help, reach out. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next show.